This video is my follow-up to my Pacific Rim review. If you haven't figured it out yet, this video will contain spoilers. If you want to find out my opinions spoiler-free, make sure you click up there. So from this point on, I'm assuming you've already seen the film and you're ready for some more Pacific Rimmage. I'm going to be talking about various plot points and ideas for possible sequels. Are you ready? Good. Let me clarify from the beginning, I loved this movie. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I realise that most of the points I'll be talking about are kind of negatives, but it's not that I didn't like it, it's just that these are the things that stick in your mind the most. It wouldn't really be much of a spoiler discussion if I was like, yeah, remember that time the kaiju had wings? That's pretty cool. Yeah, moving on. I really like the characters in this movie. The two leads, Riley and Mako, really made for some compelling characters. Okay, maybe Riley wasn't the most original character ever, but I like what you got from him, and Mako's backstory was really interesting. The lack of character development in the secondary characters is painfully obvious, but Guillermo del Toro has said that his original cut of this film was over 3 hours long, so that would obviously contain a lot more than just, hey look, there's 3 Chinese guys playing basketball, oh no wait, no, they're dead. Hey, look at that guy's beat, oh no, he's dead too. So I'm really hoping for a sort of director's cut extended Blu-ray. But one of the first things I want to talk about is something that most people had a problem with, how quickly the Jaegers got destroyed. Did nobody seem to notice that these guys got their ass handed to them 99% of the time? I've seen this film twice now, and every time the people I was with were like, what the hell, why did he die so quickly? Even the opening scene had Gypsy Danger getting ripped limb from limb and Yancey Beckett getting killed while piloting it. And I don't think there wasn't a single Jaeger that survived this movie. The whole military tactic element of it was off and made no sense. The Earth gets attacked by massive monsters, so we build like equally massive robots to fight them off, because apparently the world's military leaders are all 12-year-old boys or something. Right, cool. Let's just go with it. But these robots would be the most heavily armed thing on the planet. Instead, what happens is that they drop the Jaeger off next to the kaiju and engage in what is essentially a slap-off. Each fight begins with and then escalates from there. Wouldn't it be more effective if it just immediately unleashed everything it had in one go? You saw that the Australian one had missiles in its chest. Wouldn't it be better if it just dropped it right next to the kaiju and then just shoved every single one of these things right down its throat? Instead of having a 5-minute pissing contest, just get down there and kill them. Plus it shows that humans have all sorts of complex telemetry that shows how dilated the rim is, how many kaijus are about to come through, how big they are. Towards the end, when the double event happens, there's about 15 to 20 minutes of screen time before the kaiju show up in the radar and before they actually have the fight with the Jaeger. Isn't there some kind of missile defence system you could have right next to the rim that starts attacking as soon as they show up in the radar, even if it is just to slow them down before the Jaeger actually get there to finish the job? We saw that a tiny little flare gun was enough to send a monster into a tizzy, so what about the dozen or so helicopters that actually dropped the Jaeger off? Couldn't they help out? And what about things like military jet fighters, boats, bombers? Do they have something more important to go to? Hey Dave, those monsters are back, do you want to go save the world? Oh no, I can't, sorry, kaijus do the funniest things is on. And who thought it was a good idea to build a wall? Yeah, let's just cancel the only thing that's worked for us so far and pull all our resources into building a tiny wall, because there's nothing that could go wrong there. Wouldn't it have been better using that wall alongside the Jaegers? And I don't know, maybe funneling the kaiju into a different place where the Jaeger can better deal with them? I just think it's a bit silly having only one option. And the other thing, everyone must have been like, what the hell? The giant freaking Optimus Prime sword. That sword was badass. You see them sparring with a stick, and then you see them pulling out the sword, and you're like, yeah, I get it. But really, you couldn't have figured out how to use that before you're about to die? I know that the reason behind that is probably that Mako added it as one of her improvements while Riley was away, but surely when they drifted, he then learns all of her thoughts and all of her memories, so he would know that the sword is there. And besides, what the hell were they doing having him pilot the Jaeger without explicitly explaining all the little improvements that they've made while he was away? You know, the ones that could, I don't know, maybe save his life and stop him from getting ripped apart. And you know, that sword that can frickin' split the kaiju in two. And on the subject of them drifting, how did it go so disastrously wrong the first time, but then the second time they're both piloting the Jaegers like pros? And I really feel like Mako's segment when they first drift is one of the best bits in the film. The little girl that plays her is absolutely brilliant. You really could feel the terror that she was experiencing. But why the hell was an 8-year-old child the only thing left in Japan? Would her mother not have left like, I think I'm forgetting something? And then when Stacker appears, it's like the cheesiest thing ever, but it's Idris Elba, so you're like, hell yeah! Can we just agree that Idris Elba is definitely the best thing in this movie? There are some truly atrocious accents in this film, especially the Australian ones. Chuck is a British guy putting on an Australian accent, and it just sounds like a British guy putting on an Australian accent. Look at that crocodile down by the water! But Idris Elba knocked it out of the park. He always has imposing roles, and this one was great. His approach felt like the calm before the storm, and his speech was pretty rousing. We are cancelling the apocalypse! But I actually really did not like his death scene. The scene happens where he explains that due to radiation, if he gets on another Jaeger, it will kill him, and then immediately in the next scene you see him putting on his armour and about to pilot a Jaeger. I know it's supposed to make him heroic and self-sacrificial, but to be honest with you, I think it actually adds a bit of ambiguity to his death. When they're down there and he blows himself up to clear the path, he really doesn't put up much of a fight before he just gives up. I really feel like if he hadn't included the health element, it would have made his death all the more heroic and all the more powerful. Because then you don't have the underlying hint of, oh, maybe he just didn't want to face the consequences of all of this. Are you trying to tell me that Gypsy Danger has 2 of those escape pod things, but Striker Eureka, which is 2 marks greater, doesn't at all? If Stacker knew what he was going to be doing when he was down there, at the very least he could have ejected Chuck and at least tried to save him. After this happens, Gypsy Danger goes down the hatch, blows the nuke, and then Raleigh and Mako GTFO. But what I want to know is, how did they manage to escape in those pods? It was established that the only way to get through the throat was to disguise yourself with kaiju DNA, so how did those pristine clean escape pods get back up without first being wrapped in kaiju meat? And those things can float faster than a nuclear explosion? Really? But when it's all said and done and Raleigh and Mako are above the water, I actually like the ending. It's probably the only film I've seen this year where the 2 leads don't kiss. The half hug, half headbutt thing was much deeper, and you can tell it's so much more respectful than a kiss. These 2 now know every little thing about each other, which means that she now knows where that mouth has been. And all of that fit into one of 2 core storylines, the other of course being Charlie Day's little side quest to drift with the kaiju. Obviously does it successfully, and this kicks up an entire shitstorm because the kaiju have a hive mind, and in drifting with one, he's kind of drifted with them all. But it's clear from the very beginning that drifting is a 2-way street and that both parties learn from the other. So why was this a complete afterthought to Newt? Like, he's a leading expert in kaiju biology and he couldn't see this coming. And then the kaiju come after him to try and kill him, but they don't. They just kind of lick him with his lighty up avatar tongue. And he links up with Ron Perlman's Hannibal Chow, who I thought was awesome in this movie. His cameos are always great, but in this one he's as cool as his shoes. But how the hell did he not die? In the post-credit scenes, if you saw it, he's able to cut his way out of the baby kaiju. But that blue spit stuff that they have is literally able to burn through buildings. So how did he get through that mouth without completely dissolving? I'm just going to put it down to the fact that he's Hellboy. Let's talk sequels. There's absolutely no denying that if something like Scary Movie 4 can warrant a sequel, then this is more than deserving. It's got such a rich backstory and extended material behind it that just doesn't make it into the film, and it could totally go in Avatar's direction and expand considerably. Guillermo del Toro has stated that he and scriptwriter Travis Beacham are working on ideas for the sequel, but obviously this would be in its very, very, very early stages. But apparently it would focus on the consequences of Newt drifting with the kaiju, and I think this is such a good idea. There's so much potential for things to get a lot worse than in the first movie. The kaiju obviously learned a lot more about humans than he did from them. He was a really intelligent guy, and he knew an awful lot about military tactics for defeating kaiju, meaning that they were able to come up with ways to get around that. The opening of the Pacific Rim is never really explained, so who's to say there wouldn't be another one that opens up and lets in even more dangerous kaiju that have learned from the last generation. And one nuclear explosion isn't enough to destroy an entire universe, so we have to presume they're still out there and pissed off. Or even open it up to a whole new world, bring in monsters that are much worse than the kaiju. Guillermo del Toro stated that we won't have seen the last of Gypsy Danger, that the kaiju could salvage some parts and use them for their advantage, which I really don't understand, because the last time we saw Gypsy Danger it was literally at the epicenter of a nuclear explosion. And we could call the sequel Atlantic Rim, but definitely not Indian Rim. That just sounds like the after effects of a bad curry. Or what about going in the opposite direction, doing a prequel instead of a sequel? Stacker was clearly one of the most popular characters in the whole film, so why not do a film that just focuses on him and the first generation of Jaegers fighting the first kaijus? Either way, as long as it's got a lot more robots and a lot more monsters, I'm in. But anyway, this camera genuinely has about 30 seconds worth of memory left, so I just want to say thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and make sure you check out some of the other videos that I've done.